Hi, wanted to go over some problems we've come up with in the Medicare Bridge GLP-1 weight loss program. In our office, we've been waiting for this program to start for months now. We've accumulated patients who wanted the medications, those who were qualified for the medications, and we were ready to go, ready to launch prescriptions on July 1st of 2026. So far, we have not been very successful. Let me tell you some of the problems we've run into, and I've heard from my colleagues around the country that they've encountered some of the same problems. The first problem would be the pharmacy that's not ready to roll with the program yet. So we selected our pharmacies, we selected pharmacies from the chain stores, we selected some of the smaller pharmacies in the community, people that we knew, patients that have relationships with their pharmacists, to say, all right, let's get this together, let's choose the right patients to send in those first prescriptions to see how it goes. So one of the first problems we ran into was a very simple problem. The pharmacist said, I am not ready to start this yet. I haven't looked into it, I don't know what the rules are, and I can't act on this prescription request at this moment. Okay, honest, we accept that. Interesting, second problem we ran into, this would be at a chain store, and I would have thought the chain stores were preparing for this as well, because this is a big launch, this is a big thing, Medicare coverage of weight loss medicines, first time ever. And we did what we were supposed to do, sent in the prescription, made a note that, we made a note of what the process was, that this is a Medicare Bridge prescription. And then we called, we gave it a couple hours, and we called to follow up. And the response we got yet was, we have not yet confirmed that the patient has Medicare Part D, and we don't know the number, and we're not sure, even though this is a patient who had been filling multiple prescriptions for different medicines at this large chain store pharmacy. So they were not ready to act on that as well. Then we had another, interesting problem that we ran into. So again, I'll take you back to the form, the Medicare prior authorization form, which is what we're getting in the physician offices to submit the prior authorization form. And it says flat out, there must be a denied pharmacy claim submitted to the GLP-1 Bridge bin prior to prescriber submitting the prior authorization request. So in other words, the way we're taught is that the process should start with our prescription going to the pharmacy then submitting it through Part D, Medicare Part D, getting a denial, and then once that happens, we could submit a prior authorization request. So we were told that happened for a different patient. It had been submitted, we were told, all right, go ahead, answer that questionnaire, that prior authorization questionnaire, and we answered it. And we got a response that says it's addressed from CMS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and it says, to whom it may concern, and by the way, it attached the papers we submitted, we received your request. However, the submission could not be processed because a pharmacy claim has not been submitted to the Medicare GLP-1 Bridge Program for this beneficiary. So the pharmacist says they submitted the claim, we then submitted our authorization request, and we got back, we don't have that submission. So these are multiple problems that we ran into on the first day, really with an unsuccessful process for our patients. Another interesting thing that's come up was the process of something that maybe not everyone's familiar with, but yes, this is a great program. It's going to cover weight loss medications for the Medicare recipient who meets certain medical and body weight criteria, and it'll be a good process, and it will be a good medications to have. But there are certain exceptions to who qualifies. If you're a patient who has moderate or severe sleep apnea, you actually can get one of the 4 medications in the program called Zepbound for that diagnosis, moderate or severe sleep apnea. If you're a patient who has cardiac disease, heart disease, you can get the Wegovy pill or the Wegovy injection for that disorder, separate from going through the obesity section of this program. Also, if you have liver disease, people will call it fatty liver disease or metabolic liver disease, with moderate or advanced scarring or fibrosis, you can qualify for the Wegovy injection. So you can use these medications through sleep apnea, through cardiovascular disease, through liver scarring, and that was open to Medicare Part D patients for the last several years. The Bridge program for obesity medications, for weight loss medications, wants those patients to stay out of this lane and stay in that lane. It wants those medications to go through the traditional Part D program, not the Bridge program. And we ran into some interesting issues where once all the paperwork was submitted, the patient was rejected because they had been on one of those medications. So for instance, let's say, as an example, the patient may have been using one of the Wegovy pill or injection medications for cardiovascular disease prevention perhaps 2 years ago, and maybe they didn't tolerate it, maybe they stopped it for whatever reason, and they haven't been on it for a year, and now they want to start a weight loss medication through the Medicare Bridge Program. They were rejected because they were eligible for the medicine through a different pathway. And that leads to a lot of interesting questions. Because let's say you don't tolerate a medicine and you already took it. Does that mean you can get a weight loss medication because you perhaps didn't tolerate one of the other medications? Maybe it was Wegovy for liver disease, maybe it was Zepbound for sleep apnea. Does that mean you're shut out of the program because you couldn't tolerate that? So that's kind of an interesting problem that we ran into. Another interesting issue is, let's say you do have sleep apnea, or you do have liver fibrosis, or you do have cardiovascular disease, but maybe you want to be on a pill, and maybe only the shots are the medicines for those disorders, or maybe you want to be on a shot, and only a pill is for those disorders. Are you then kicked out or not eligible for the Medicare Bridge Program? It seems that that's the case. And the bigger problem we've been running into is actually dealing with the patients, because no matter how much we try to explain it, this is actually a tough topic. If you're a Medicare patient and you spend 5, 10, 15 years dealing with your Medicare, knowing your Part D, knowing your deductibles, knowing your caps, knowing your maximum out of pocket, and all the things that are relevant to that, and now we're telling you Medicare's covering weight loss drugs, they're thinking Part D, they're thinking deductible, they're not even sure what to think because it's very confusing to them. And we're kind of saying Medicare's covering weight loss meds, but it's not Part D, it's a different program. You have to think about it differently. It's not about your deductible. You have to pay $50 per prescription. A lot of confusion from the patient's point of view as well. So I think we've seen confusion from all parties in this game so far. As well, the prior authorization process is routed through one company, and I'm sure when other offices perhaps have successfully got to that end, there may be an overload or a deluge of paperwork heading that way to get the approval. So these are some of the interesting things we've run into on the first day of the Medicare Coverage Bridge Program for GLP-1 medications for weight loss for Medicare recipients. I hope this information is helpful to pharmacists, physicians, providers, prescribers, and patients, and hopefully we'll continue to navigate through the program.